Hello everyone. I hope you all doing well and I hope that you all watched my first video about introduction to psychology. So from this video I'm going to talk about intelligence. So let's get started. So first let's see what is intelligence. We can define intelligence as the capacity to understand the world, think rationally and use resources effectively when faced with challenges. So rational means based on or in accordance with reason or logic. And here it says use resources effectively. What are these resources? Resources are abilities that allow us to adapt to the environment and behave in a goal-directed way. So it can be mental abilities that enable one to adapt to shape or select one's environment, or the ability to judge, comprehend and reason, the ability to understand and deal with people, objects and symbols, and also it can be the ability to act purposefully, think rationally and effectively with the environment. There are two components of intelligence, which are fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence reflects information processing capabilities, reasoning and memory, whereas crystallized intelligence is the accumulation of information, skills, and strategies that people have learned through experience and that they can apply in problem-solving situations. Also, fluid intelligence reaches its peak before age 20 and then remains steady through life, whereas crystallized intelligence continues to increase as long as people are active and alert. Moving on, Howard Gardner came up with this concept where he called multiple intelligence. We'll see what are these multiple intelligence. First we have musical intelligence. People who are gifted with musical intelligence have a strong sense of rhythm. They are able to hear and potentially manipulate patterns in sources. Potential occupations can be such as a musician, songwriter, composer, sound technician, and a music teacher. Then we have bodily kinesthetic intelligence. People who are gifted with bodily kinesthetic intelligence enjoys the movement of body to solve a problem, creating something or perform, often called active. Potential occupations can be such as an athlete, a dancer, actor, and a physical therapist. Then we have logical mathematical intelligence, which means strength in reasoning and logical thinking. People who are gifted with logical mathematical intelligence recognizes the patterns in daily life so easily. Potential occupations can be such as an engineer, accountant, computer programmer, mathematician, and a scientist. Then we have linguistic intelligence. People who are gifted with linguistic intelligence uses language to express and understand ideas. Potential occupations can be such as a writer, a journalist, speaker, and a lawyer. Then we have spatial intelligence, which means the ability to represent the spatial world in one's mind, often called artistic or creative. Potential occupations can be such as an artist, architect, interior designer, engineer, photographer, and an inventor. Then we have interpersonal intelligence, which means the ability to understand other people, works well on terms and in groups. Potential occupations can be such as a teacher, nurse, clinician, salesperson, therapist, and a politician. Then we have intrapersonal intelligence. People who are gifted with intrapersonal intelligence has a deep understanding of oneself, often say that you know who you are. Potential occupations can be such as a business person, writer, therapist, and a social worker. Then we have naturalistic intelligence, which means sensitivity to features of the natural world, and they have a strong appreciation for the environment. Potential occupations can be such as environmental scientist, botanist, farmer, veterinarian, sailor, and a biologist. And then last we have existential intelligence. People who are gifted with this kind of intelligence has deep desire to ponder questions about life, death, and ultimate realities. Potential occupations can be such as spiritual or a religious leader or a philosopher. Then there's something called practical intelligence, which means the intelligence related to overall success in living. For example, in areas such as non-academic, career, personal success. And there's emotional intelligence, which means a set of skills that underline the accurate assessment, evaluation, expression, and regulations of emotion. Okay, next we are going to talk about intelligent tests. Research on human intelligence has two different but overlapping tracks. The first track, historically, is that of intelligent testing, which focuses on measuring and explaining differences among individuals in intellectual ability. The second track is that of cognitive psychology, which focuses on the question of how people reason and solve problems and is concerned more with universal than individual differences. So, cognitive psychologists examine the errors that people make on problems, including intelligence test problems, not to rank people but to find clues as to how the human mind works. So, intelligent testing has always several primary practical concerns. The first apply psychologist practitioners who try to solve real world problems using insights from psychology were intelligent testers. School system wanted intelligent testers to determine who could profit most from education. Employers wanted them to help devise whom to hire, and armies wanted them to help decide how to assign recruits for ranks and tasks. So now we are going to look at Alfred Binet's test of school-related ability. The first widely used intelligence test, the Binet-Simon Intelligence Scale, was developed in France in 1905 by Alfred Binet and his assistant Theodore Simon. Binet had been hired by French Ministry of Education to develop a test that would be used to help determine grade level in which children should be placed at school. So Binet conceived of intelligence not as a single entity and not as something fixed by heredity, but as a collection of higher ordered mental abilities that are only loosely related to one another and are nurtured through interactions with the environment. In fact, he believed that a proper goal of schooling is to increase intelligence, and he proposed that his test be used to identify children who were not profiting as much as they should from schooling so that they might be given special attention. Binet and Simon's test was oriented explicitly toward the skills required for schoolwork. It included questions and problems designed to test memory, vocabulary, common knowledge, use of numbers, understanding of time, and ability to combine ideas. The problems were selected by testing them in school children of various ages and comparing the results with teachers' ratings of each child's classroom performance. So items were kept in the test only if more of the high-rated than low-rated children answered them correctly, otherwise they were dropped. Binet was aware of the circularity of this process So his test was intended to measure, but to develop it, he had to compare results with an existing measure, which means teacher's rating. Yet one developed the test would presumably have advantages over teacher's rating. And then, in 1908, Binet and Simon revised their test and incorporated the concepts of mental level, referred to by others as mental age, into the scoring system. With this new scoring system, a child was assigned a mental level corresponding to the age group whose average score and the child test result best matched. Thus, a child of any age who performed as well as an average 10-year-old would be assigned a mental level of 10. For better or worse, this system probably did much to popularize the test. Mental level indicated directly whether a child was advanced or behind, and thus played on the pride and anxiety of parents and teachers. Within a few years, English translations of Binet-Simon test were available, and testing caught on in England and North America even more readily than it had in France. And then we have the modern IQ test. The first intelligence test commonly used in North America was the Stanford Binet scale, a modification of Binet and Simon's test that was developed in 1916 at Stanford University under the direction of Louis Terman. By this time, Binet's original mental age scoring system had been modified to produce the intelligence quotient or IQ, which was determined by dividing a child's mental age by his or her actual chronological age and multiplying by 100. For example, if a child's mental age as measured by the test was 11.5 and chronological age was 10, then the child's IQ would be 150. An IQ of 100 would mean that a child was average for his or her age, and scores above or below 100 would mean that the child was above or below average. So they believe that intellectually gifted are people with IQ scores greater than 130. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you need any help regarding notes and more facts, please do contact me via my email address cascade.psychology@gmail.com, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Watch my next video on memory. Have a good day.